I'd like to call this first council and committee meeting for 2025 to order. Before we proceed further, I want to acknowledge that the land upon which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Adirondack, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe people. We are the beneficiaries of ancient agreements, such as the dish with one spoon between the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee, who agreed to share the abundance of the land through peace, friendship, and mutual respect. The Truro Wampum, by which the Haudenosaunee welcomed the settlers and agreed to share the land in mutual respect, and the Treaty of Niagara, considered a fundamental document by First Nations in all future relations and treaties with the British. We recognize that we have a responsibility to be stewards of the land in cooperation and collaboration with the Indigenous peoples, not only for one generation, but for all generations to come. We understand that we have an obligation to learn the lessons of our history, educate ourselves about the experiences of the Indigenous people, and seek opportunities to heal the wounds that will result in reconciliation with our Indigenous sisters and brothers. Many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people live and work in Fort Erie. We stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. We have the good fortune to live in a land of such abundance, diversity, and beauty. Let us be vigilant in protecting Turtle Island. Madam Clerk, the roll call, please.
All members of council are present. Mayor Redekop.
Tonight, one announcement, and that is with respect to the fact that January is Crime Stoppers Month, and Crime Stoppers of Niagara has been extremely effective since 1985 in helping the Niagara Regional Police Service solve crimes and in working with various organizations to make communities in Niagara safer for all residents. The concept of Crime Stoppers has now grown to over 11,000 programs operating in countries worldwide. Crime Stoppers of Niagara is working toward being a key organization for reporting elder abuse and delivering awareness and capacity building by establishing strong partnerships with agencies that work with older adults in the Niagara region. And in recognition of Crime Stoppers Month, we raised the flag here at Town Hall on January the 2nd, and that will fly during the month of January. I did want to make one other comment, and that is that Councillors McDermott and Christensen are attending, along with me and our Chief Administrative Officer, the Rural Ontario Municipalities, the Rural Ontario Municipalities Association next week, beginning of next week, and we have arranged to meet with 8 ministers or parliamentary assistants across a number of ministries to advance the interests of the town of Fort Erie with respect to various things, and I think one of the highlights will be our meeting with the parliamentary assistant for the Minister of Health, and we'll be trying to track down the Minister of Health and the Solicitor General to ensure that they're fully aware of the significance and importance of primary health care in Fort Erie and our desires to keep the Douglas Memorial Hospital open. There is an addendum this evening. There's actually 2. There's one that put a delegation on. It's now been removed, but we've also added to the original agenda the rodent control rebate program. So we have, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? If there are none, then I would point out that we have some upcoming budget meetings scheduled. January 29th, 2025 is the Fort Erie Public Library's presentation along with our assessment analysis and the general levy operating budget. If it's necessary, there will be a further meeting on February the 5th. The budget bylaws for the operating general levy budget and final general capital budget is scheduled for February the 24th, 2025. We have a public meeting for a proposed zoning bylaw amendment for 986 Ridge Road North, and that will be held on Monday, January the 27th, 2025 as part of the regular council meeting that starts at 6 o'clock and is held here in the council chambers in Town Hall. We also have an open house with respect to a Rebstock Road development that is to be held next Monday, January the 25th in the atrium here in the Town Hall, and that's at 5 p.m. And that is with respect to a zoning change that we know is a different one.
It is for a standard condominium application.
With respect to the property that we
We
had
had, council
dealt
had
with a
rezoned it.
rezoning some time ago.
That's
And
correct.
that's just north of north of Rebstock Road, west of Ridge Road, and adjacent to the Crystal Ridge Park. There are no public meetings this evening. We have a consent agenda with several reports. Can I have a mover for the consent agenda? Councillor Dubanow. Those reports are on the floor for any questions or comments. They deal with the third quarter development, building planning, bylaw status report. Also the budget amendment with respect to Point Avenue Road South reconstruction, and memorandum from our Manager of Economic Development with respect to the 2024 Economic Development and Tourism Services. Any questions or comments? So with respect to the third quarter report, I'm wondering, Ms. Dilwari, if it's possible for there to be running tallies with respect to housing starts in these reports so that we know where we stand for the quarter, but also for the year as to date. And
Yes, Your Worship, we can definitely include that.
and I know that there was some information related to demographics, population in the report. I'm wondering if we could maybe, for the next report, the final report for 2024, see if we can get some updated information with respect to population, because my understanding is now that the town of Fort Erie has a population of in excess of 36,000. So I'm sure that would have an impact on the reporting, but also the breakdown of what's in there. I don't know how difficult that will be to get that information, but if it's possible, I wonder if we could look into that. With respect to IS 02 2025 Point Avenue Road, just wanted to confirm that that's really only the replacement of the water main and a reconstruction of the road without the larger breadth of the scope of the project that had been anticipated some time ago.
That's correct, Mayor.
And so there'll be no need for a debenture with respect to that project.
We do not foresee one.
Okay, thank you. And then the question that I had with respect to, and this can be answered later, with respect to the economic development highlights is, I know that 156 new businesses have opened since the pandemic. Just wondering how many of those continue in operation, or on the other side, how many of those have closed? I know some of them have, maybe a few, but that would then give us a net information. Do you have that information now? Perfect. I should have known.
Good evening, Mayor, Your Worship, staff, members of the public. Out of the 156, there's been 26 that have closed.
Okay, so we're still net 130
Yes.
ahead. Thank you. That was the only question I had. Any other members of council have any questions? If not, then I'm going to call the question on the recommendations contained in those reports. All those in favor? None opposed, so that is carried. That then takes us to Planning and Development Services, so I'm going to hand the chair over to Councillor Christensen.
Thank you, Your Worship. Planning and Development Services subcommittee is now in session. We have no presentations and delegations this evening, so we will move to the first report, which is Planning Building Bylaw Services 01-2025, the Commercial Facade Grant Program application for 2648 Stevensville Road. And I have a mover, please. Councillor Lewis. Open for questions, discussion. Councillor Noyes.
I'm glad to see that there's hope that this particular building may be improved upon, but I do hope that the grant portion is paid out only upon completion of the project.
Your Worship.
Yes, and not to put too fine a point on that, it's not clear to me entirely what completion of the project means. If it's completion of the facade project, I'm not satisfied with that. For this reason, you can't have a facade without a building, and there is no building. And so I would be prepared to support, and perhaps Ms. Dilwari can advise us whether it's necessary to include something in the recommendations. I'd be prepared to support this, simply because I think it's $9,000 that may assist us in eliminating an eyesore in downtown Stevensville. But I'm not prepared to support paying that money unless it's connected to a completion of the building. So my question then to Ms. DeWaria is, do we need to specify that clearly in either the recommendations or in whatever agreement is signed with the property owner?
Ms. Dovaria, Madam Chair, through you to Mr. Mayor. Yes, that would be helpful if we could specify that, because the grant program talks only about the facade, and this is a unique situation that staff has come across. So it would be helpful, and we'll try to make sure that we'll make sure that this clause would be included in the agreement as well upon the completion of the building, just in, with anything else that council wants to add.
So then, Madam Chair, I would move to amend the recommendation that the agreement be based on payment of the grant upon completion of the building itself,
Of the entire building,
the entire building.
yes. Do you have that, Madam Clerk? Right then. Can I call that amendment? All in favor? Carried.
So just, Councillor Lewis just mentioned, completion of the building, would that include, would that surmise that there is an occupancy permit that is issued or will be issued? Or do you need that specification as well?
It would be about the completion of the building, because those two are two separate things. But if council will feel better about the occupancy, they could add that condition in there as well.
So I'd be prepared to wait to see, to deal with that when we get to the bylaw stage, and then the Director of Planning can provide us maybe with some further suggestions or advice with respect to that.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I'd just like to make a point that there is a time constraint, I understand, with respect to the grant, which is 1 year. So in developing the contract, that we would have to ensure that we manage that issue as well. Councillor Dubanow, you...
No, Madam Chair, you just raised the issue I was just going to ask. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor McDermott?
Yes, just a couple of things. We normally don't do CIPs until the building's actually up, but seeing that we're going to entertain it today, that's fine, I guess. I do have a question to Anamika with regards to the use of 2018 price estimates, when I kind of think between 2018 and 2025, these prices probably skyrocketed a bit from those periods. So I'm wondering what the idea is on that, of accepting that.
Ms. Dovaria?
Madam Chair, through you to the councillor, we had that discussion with Mr. Wrangler about the cost estimate dating back to 2018. It was brought to his attention, but I have Ms. Smith in here, and she would be able to throw more light on it.
Ms. Smith?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor McDermott. So the applicant was advised that he could get new quotes. However, the way the grant works, it's either the lowest of half of the cost estimate or half of the maximum eligibility for the grant. So even if he were to get new estimates and they were higher than his 2018 ones, it wouldn't have increased his amounts or decreased his amounts by any.
Just one other question while I got you up here. I noticed that in the estimates, you have 3 estimates, which is the norm. The third estimate, I'm just wondering, is the lowest estimate, probably the one that would be taken. Is PRW fabrication Niagara on the lake, the business of the person building the building?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor McDermott, I'm unaware if this is his company. This isn't anything he has shared with me, but we can look into this. And then the contractor isn't actually selected until he goes through the process with the agreement and then provides us that information of who he's actually using. And there are certain instances where they actually use several different contractors. And then we only provide the grant for the amount that was approved.
So should PRW Fabrication Niagara on the lake be owned and operated by the person that's building the building? Is there or is there not a conflict of interest on that?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor McDermott, I would have to ask for legal advice on this, but it is my understanding that it's possible it could be a conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Are there any other questions or concerns? That being said, I'll call a question. All in favor of the report as amended? Carried. We now go to the next report, which is PBBS 02-2025, Heritage Permit Application for 1 Burns Place. Can I get a mover, Your Worship? So that report is now on the floor for discussion and questions. Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Councillor Christensen. In regards to I'm going to support this because it's basically based on a zoning issue and things, and that there's more information required. So if this gentleman does provide additional information as requested and the zoning issue is dealt with, are we still then he can then reapply for the application?
Ms.
For the demolition?
would you comment?
Madam Chair, through you to the councillor, this is the first stage in the process that we are denying that heritage permit, like that's a recommendation to the council. Then it would be, the matter is before the OLT and a decision would be made then. And if OLT decides, yes, they can issue a heritage permit, then we would be back at council.
Okay, so just a little bit backing this up a little bit then. The heritage designation hasn't gone through completely yet. And is the owner appealing it?
Madam Chair, through you to the councillor, yes, the property was designated by council, but he is appealing the designation.
Do we have any idea of the date or the timelines?
Madam Chair, I don't have the date, but I believe it's in February or March of this year.
Okay, then I agree that this is a bit premature and important to know whether he's going to have the heritage designation or not. If he's successful, then a lot of this is moot anyway. Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? No, I'll call the question then. All in favor? Carried. The next report is PBBS 03-2025, the B City designation for the town of Fort Erie.
I'd like to move that. Sorry, because I moved this motion in 2017, so I'd like to.
Your Worship,
I want to stay on for these.
His Worship moves. So this is on the floor for discussion. Councillor Dubanow.
I don't know if His Worship wants to speak to it first, but I just wanted to, if it's all right, I just wanted to make a brief comment. When Mayor Redekop brought this motion up originally, I was really happy. I mentioned this to everyone. There's 4 generations of beekeepers in my family. My uncle up in St. Catharines was a beekeeper. My grandfather before was a beekeeper. He used to take me out to the hives, used to see everything. His hives were out in Niagara on the lake, even though they lived in St. Catharines. It was a real interesting to see that there and how they pollinate and kind of go around the farm fields. And then my great-grandfather and my great-great-grandfather back over in Eastern Europe were also beekeepers. And my grandfather's knowledge, he brought that to North America. So I think this is really, for me personally, sitting on council, to have a Bee City designation happen while I'm here, it's really cool because bees are super important. Like they say, if the bees die, all life on Earth dies because we need them to pollinate. So I think we should be doing everything we can to encourage and, make a city, our municipality friendly to bees to ensure that we continue to have a safe food supply. It's not something people think about, but it's super important. So I appreciate that. And I just wanted to mention that because I think this is really, for the small amount of money, it's a great program. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Your worship.
Yes, thank you. And I did misspeak. It wasn't 2007, it was 2019 that this motion was first brought. But I did want to indicate that the author of the report, Zachary George, is here. And I wanted to compliment him specifically on the quality of the report. It's an excellent report. And I'm maybe not as excited as Councillor Dubanow, but I'm pretty excited about the fact that we are going to be moving towards becoming a bee city, bee town. And this is an important initiative which really builds upon all of the work that's been going on in this community back to the time when we did the first natural heritage inventory almost 25 years ago, developed the EAC when Councillor Lewis was here in his previous life, and now the things that we've done in order to protect and preserve our natural heritage, including the tree protection bylaws. So this is a part of a piece that moves us forward. I think that we're the preeminent community in Niagara, municipality in Niagara, in terms of environmental issues. This helps us to continue on down that road. So I'm very pleased about this and hope that council will support it.
Councillor Noyes?
Councillor Christensen, I was a farmer's daughter. We had bees on our property, but we only had like 3 or 4 boxes or whatever you want to call them. But one of the things that I found out not that long ago, probably about a year ago, is that beekeeping is considered a farming exercise. And so some of the farmers who no longer kind of cultivate their fields, if they can get a relationship with a beekeeper and the bees are kept on their property, then it's a win-win because then they get the tax incentive and the tax reduction for actually using their property as farming. And I know one particular farmer was very, very helpful in the end result of the taxation. And I didn't realize that keeping bees, even if it's not your own property, would help the owner of the property get a considerable tax deduction.
Councillor Lewis?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and just one quick comment. The mayor mentions previous life, but I'm going to refer to it as my farewell tour. And if Elton John can have about 19 of them, I think we're okay. I just wanted to mention that this came up for discussion briefly in some side chat at the most recent EAC committee meeting, and it was quite well received. But I hope we don't stop with just here and we look at, other things like birding community and other things that can be done to promote ecotourism as an example. And there's a ton of grant money out there for regenerative agriculture or like Ontario Soil and Crop, and I'm sure on the bee side as well, but certainly supportive of this, and it sounds like the rest of council is too. So great work.
And I'd just like to comment, if I may. This is something that I think is very important, and it's something that may well affect it enables us to look at other types of agriculture on residential lots besides the eternal grass that people are so proud of in some cases and not so proud of in other cases. So it may well have an impact on the look of our town in general. So, thank you. If there are no more questions or comments, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. The next report is the PBBS 05-2025, an amendment to the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 12990, housekeeping amendment initiation report. Councillor Dubanow moves. That report is now on the floor. And Councillor Dubanow, you have some comments.
Yeah, just a quick question, Madam Chair, if I may. I'm just curious, there were a lot of various items listed within this report, and I'm of the opinion that they're all good ideas to help streamline and also kind of fix some quirks within some of our bylaws that we have as well. I'm just wondering if, is this going to be coming back as a bylaw or with some more information? Because I know some of the items there said they were suggested or, to look into, and it didn't say anything definitive. So I'm just wondering if there's some clarification on that.
Ms. Del Warrior. Madam Chair, through you to the councillor. Yes, this is just an information report. We'll be bringing back a recommendation report where staff would have a presentation and it would be more information would be provided in that report.
Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Councillor Christensen. I've asked this question before, and I usually get the answer that I'm expecting, but since I don't see it in the report, it's in regards to travel trailers, pickup campers, tent trailers, et cetera. I want to make sure that this does not affect an individual who is building his house and wants to live on the property while the house is being built. I think they have a year or something. Just want to make sure that's not going to be lost in this.
Mr. Warren. Madam Chair, if the person already has zoning rights as of now, I don't think we would change it, but I don't have a definitive answer, but maybe Mr. Van der Veen can throw some light on it.
Mr. Van der Veen.
Councillor Noyes, we do have other zoning provisions that permit, temporary trailers and things while you're constructing a home. Our proposed changes here would not impact those. And just to clarify, we're just looking to add motor vehicles to that provision. It was requested by law enforcement. It's more to deal with that issue. We're not actually planning on changing any of the provisions related to trailers or things of that nature.
Any other questions?
No, just thank you for that answer. I was pretty sure it was still in there somewhere, but thank you.
I know this isn't, I'd like to ask one question. Is the issue with bylaw with respect to living in motor vehicles related to inability to find homes?
Likely, but that was requested by law enforcement for that issue, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, I understand it's not our purview, but it is our community. Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Van der Veen. Appreciate it. Any other comments or questions, Mr. Van der Veen? Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
If there are no further questions, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. The next item is PBBS 06-2025, Animal Care and Control Services Extension of Contract. Can I have a mover, please? Jeepers, I'm going blank right now. This is
Councillor,
terrible.
what's his name?
Councillor Flagg. I am really just, no.
For me, you're unforgettable, but I guess apparently for others. He can be Councillor Flagg.
Yes, I got Councillor Flagg. I got there myself, thank goodness. Are there any questions? Councillor Noyes?
Thank you, Councillor Christensen. I have no problem with the service that was provided by the Humane Society of Greater Niagara. I haven't had a lot of complaints. I think they've done a good job, and I think a lot of things. But at the same point, I can recall 3 years ago when we first made this decision, we were, in my mind, we were very specific too that it would be opened again, and so the Fort Erie SPCA or someone else could also bid on it. And I do know that the Fort Erie SPCA has taken great steps to improve and to look at the deficiencies, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's only fair, since that was I wouldn't say a promise, but it was indicated then that there would be an opportunity in 3 years at the end of this of the current contract for us for them to have another, I hate to say kick at the cat, but I just couldn't resist.
Yes, please. That's,
Anyway, it's done tongue in cheek, I like cats, and I don't kick them, but anyway, so that's my comment. I'm not going to support this at this point, because I do think we need a request for proposals. We need to open it up.
Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do think that anytime that we can re-enter a contract that's 3 years old at a 2% increase is good business. I've been relatively happy with the services provided. It would be concerning to me that if we put this back out to tender, that maybe the tenders come back in at 15% over and above, and I think that may be fiscally irresponsible. So I'll support this at this point.
Your Worship.
so Madam Chair, 3-4 years ago, there were a lot of issues that had been highlighted for this council with respect to problems in connection with our animal control services. And on that basis, we did an RFP and were provided with 3 responses to that. The Lincoln County Humane Society, now the Greater Niagara Humane Society, I guess it's called, came up with the best proposal and got this contract. At the time, there was a lot of consternation in the community about change of service providers, particularly one that wasn't in town. But you know, it was a fair process, and it was one that was in the context of a lot of issues that I think made councillors appreciate the fact that maybe a new service provider was warranted. At the time, I indicated that I would be looking for some changes in the operations of the Fort Erie SPCA. I'd be looking for them to try to address the concerns that have been raised. I think they've done a lot of work over the years, the 3 years, in order to try to address those concerns. One of the issues that I have had from the outset was that the Humane Society that currently has the contract doesn't have a presence in Fort Erie, and that makes it, it's not that they have to, and certainly we have lots of contracts with lots of companies that don't have a location in Fort Erie. But when you're serving the public in connection with pets, and your pet goes astray, and you end up having to make arrangements to get your pet, you know, some distance from here, I think that that's something that needs to be looked at. I appreciate what Councillor Flagg has said, and I know to some extent if we were to go to another RFP, it may be more than a 2% increase. I'd be looking for something that provides, if we were to go that route, that provides a presence in Fort Erie so that people aren't inconvenienced to the point where they have to leave town in order to pick up their stray pet. And so Madam Chair, I'm going to move that we go to the alternative that's identified in the project, and that is that staff be directed to initiate a request for proposals for animal care and control services as soon as possible, and if necessary, seek an extension of the current contract for 2 to 3 months to facilitate that process. So I'm putting that on the floor.
We have an amendment on the floor. Are there any comments? Councillor Dubanow.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm agreeable to this. I'm just wondering, perhaps if maybe, and perhaps the mayor has already spoke to this, but I'm just wondering with respect to staff and being able to put this together, would 3 to 4 months be an appropriate amount of time? Should we be looking at a little more? I'm just trying to get an idea if this is the right amount of time to ensure that we can get all our ducks in a row to put a good request for proposals out there.
Ms. Del Warria.
Madam Chair, it's my understanding that we would be able to do that within, till a couple of months, but Mr. McCaffrey is here, and he would be able to provide more information.
Mr. McCaffrey?
Mr. Mayor and Councillor, we have the advantage of the current RFP, which is already prepared. It would just take a matter of getting it up to date. So I would imagine 3 to 4 months would probably be sufficient to get this process completed.
So I believe the date that you suggested in your report as the alternative was July 31st?
I don't think I suggested a date in my, I could probably defer with finance and speak to Justin, and he would be in a better position to determine exact amount than I would be.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions or comments? Oh, Your Worship.
Yeah, so the report does say July the 31st. I don't know whether that's enough time. The current contract expires is it the end of May?
May 31st.
Yeah, so that's 2 months.
Oh, I've-
So if we make it 3 months, then we've covered, I think we've covered it adequately. So I would say then instead of 2 or 3 months, let's just make it an extension of 3 months if necessary.
The contract. So that would be August 31st.
Okay.
Thank you. So we'll.
Okay. That staff be directed to initiate a request for proposal for animal care and control services as soon as possible, and if necessary, seek an extension of the current contract for 3 months to facilitate that process. I've got it written out and I can hand it to you later.
So I'll call Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure who you want to direct this to, but will the supplier be under any obligation to extend this? We're just trying to negotiate it at this point, I'm assuming?
Mr. McCaffrey?
That would be a legal question, I believe. I don't have an answer for that.
I don't know. Mr. Riley, do you have any comment with respect to Councillor Flagg's question?
Councillor Flagg, could you repeat the question? Sorry.
We're looking to extend this beyond the current contract length. Is there an obligation on behalf of the supplier to accept that extension at all?
Councillor Flagg, there is a notice.
To turn on your mic.
There is a notice provision in the contract. There is a small hiccup with respect to that notice provision because we are into that notice provision. So there is a strategy and a simple solution to maybe a dynamic problem. And that's really all I'm comfortable discussing in open session. But I think ultimately writing to these individuals and asking to amend the notice provision would rectify issue at hand. Essentially, we missed the 6-month window. We're just inside of it, but not by much.
Thank you.
So I will call the question with respect to the mayor's amendment. All in favor? Carried. Opposed? Carried. All right, so I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion as amended? All in favor and opposed? Carried. The final report is PBBS 07 2025, the Rodent Control Rebate Program, moved by Councillor Dubanow. And Councillor Dubanow, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, a comment, Madam Chair. I just want to extend my appreciation to Mr. McCaffrey and his team and staff for putting this together. I raised this originally as a notice of motion, and it was due to some issues that had been raised by residents and some concerns that they had. And I really appreciate the how timely, how quickly we're able to go through this. When we discussed this at the subcommittee meeting, I was actually taken aback at how little municipalities spend on such a program. I think one municipality had a little bit of a higher uptake. I won't say which one, but the others were all. Councillor Christensen knows, she was in the meeting. But I think, you know, anything that we can do that's a small amount that has a big impact on residents who are affected, it goes a long way. So, you know, the amount of money that we're spending on this for the municipality, that this is not a lot of money. But that amount, the subsidy that can be provided to a family who needs that assistance, goes a long way. And I think this is an excellent opportunity for, you know, that kind of help that we can provide that's not too much of a burden for us to take on. So I'm supporting this. I extend all my appreciation to the staff who were involved in putting this together. I think it was a great report, had lots of good information, and looking forward to us being able to help out resolve these issues going forward. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Your Worship?
I just had a question with respect to, under alternatives, there was a reference to a municipal sanitary sewer baiting program that a couple of municipalities in Niagara engage in. I'm presuming that we don't at this stage of the game.
Mr. Warrior?
That's correct, Madam Chair. We do not.
And Madam Chair, is this something that, if it became necessary, staff would be able to inform us and bring back some information?
Yes, we would bring a report back, yes.
Yep, thank you.
Councillor Noyes?
Thank you, Councillor Christensen. I was going to ask along the same lines as the mayor. Do we have any idea why we wouldn't do two going together, that we wouldn't do the sewer baiting at the same time? Is there a huge cost?
Madam Chair, I had a discussion with Mr. McCaffrey about the budget implication for baiting the sewers, and Mr. McCaffrey had a chance to discuss that with one of the municipality in the region who does that, and I think he would be happy to provide that information.
Mr. McCaffrey?
Madam Chair, I did reach out to other municipalities. I stand corrected. I listed in a report that there's 2 municipalities who do the baiting program. It's just one. So I reached out to that, and they they run both programs at the same time. The rodent control program is for specific properties if an individual has a problem. The baiting program is when you have more of a community, like a neighborhood problem. It's usually done after the rodent rebate program is initiated to clean up the area, because if you don't clean up the specific houses, the rats are not going to take the bait in the sewer, is what I'm told. So you have to do the rodent rebate program first to clean up the area. Then if there's still a problem, then you can initiate the sewer baiting program.
Another question?
Well, I just added to that. I appreciate the answer. I'm just remembering, I'm sure a lot of us here remember what happened when Birdie School came down. And the rodents, type like that. I keep thinking that the sewer baiting should probably be in specific instances like that when there's a huge problem in the area. I don't want to wait a year to find out, because this report talks about, you know, we have to wait a year, when particularly Birdie School is a really good example of the problem. I think if we would have done some sewer baiting then, we would not have had a lot of the residents have the problem with the rats, because they basically came from that site. So I think we need to kind of look at site-specific when something like that does happen, that we don't just say, okay, we're going to wait. I agree with the resident program 100%. I'm not against that. I'm just saying, if a situation like Birdie School demolition arises, I think we should initiate the baiting program immediately. That's my opinion. And should keep.
Councillor Dubanow?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And just touching on that issue, because I think that's a really good point about the, and I remember when that happened, touching on, like, you know, when we know that there's specific circumstances. I'm wondering if, to give staff the flexibility to report back or to identify an issue and perhaps get some authorization or something to move forward in those specific circumstances. Is this a flexibility staff have to available to undertake right now to ask or to move forward? Or is this something perhaps staff would prefer we move an amendment to kind of give some direction going forward? I think it's a good point. And I do remember when the school, and I've heard of other situations as well where buildings come down. And I wouldn't want to have us put this program in place and then it all be for naught if we have an area issue. So I'm just wondering if there's some clarification.
Your worship.
Well, we have a budget meeting coming up, is it next week? 29th. I would suggest that we get some information for the budget meeting so we have an idea of what the cost might be. I do think we should be in a position to be able to act if it's necessary on the one hand. On the other hand, I can't imagine this would be a significant sum of money, but I think it would be helpful if we could at least get that information during our budget meeting on the 29th.
I can give you an approximate amount if you wish, Mr. Mayor. The municipality I spoke to, they have budgeted $5,000 for the baiting program. That covers approximately 100 bait sites. It's approximately $25 to $40 per manhole.
I would think that we can, if a worst-case scenario arose, I'm sure we've got that money that would be available someplace, but I think we should at least maybe consider including that in the budget. Or reducing the funding available elsewhere so that Mr. McCaffrey can bait those manholes.
I would defer to Kelly for that.
Just kidding. Oh, and I daren't suggest that we take money away from infrastructure services. So I'm fine if we proceed that way. I don't know, Councillor Dubanow, if that's acceptable.
So are you intending to bring in an amendment to the motion on the floor?
No, I'm good with what the mayor had mentioned. Maybe if we can get some information at budget time.
All right then. So thank you very much, Mr. McCaffrey, for the report. And so then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. There are no more reports. There are no new business inquiries, or are there any new business inquiries? Yes, Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Councillor Christensen. Under one of the reports today, about the tree replanting program, or I guess it's called the tree program. There was $6,000 collected for people who chopped down trees, got the permit, et cetera, and couldn't put the trees back where they belong. I'm assuming that each tree is about $600 to plant. I'm making an assumption here. So that, therefore, there's going to be 10 trees that have to be planted in the next. My understanding is that they're supposed to be planted at the same time that the residents would have had to have planted, like the same time frame restriction. So I just want to make sure, how are we going to keep track of that? Because we haven't been very conscientious of that in the past. And this is a new program, so it's new money. I want to make sure those 10 trees are planted in a timely fashion.
Ms. Delwari, do you have an estimate of the time frame and the way in which you'll monitor?
Madam Chair, through you to the councillor, we are planning for the spring planting right now, and we'll try to make sure that it's done on a regular basis and there is not a backlog. But we can get you a memo, like we can bring a memo back to council regarding the timing of the planting. But it's my understanding we would try to expedite the tree planting.
Okay, I would appreciate that, because I do know that we have a huge backlog, and this is just going to add to the number of trees that have to be planted. I just don't want, I want to see everything move forward. Thank you.
Are there any other new business inquiries? There being none, the next item is the business status report. Are there any questions or inquiries about the business status report? There being none, I now declare the Planning and Development Services Subcommittee meeting closed and turn the chair back to you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Christensen. That takes us to Infrastructure Services. I hand the chair to Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Your Worship, and boy, do I know how to clear a room. It comes to me, and everybody's gone. There are no presentations or delegations this evening. There is one report, 10.21 IS 01 2025 Bay Beach Operational Update for 2024. And I have a mover for the report, Councillor Christensen. Any questions or comments from Council? Councillor Noyes.
Just a clarification first, is that, again, and again, it was a while ago that we've made these plans. So I thought it was 12 years that children 12 and under got in for free.
Director Walsh.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's children 10 and under.
Okay, then I stand corrected. I thought it was 12 and under. Okay, that's fine. I'm wondering why this amount of an increase when it was, when basically we were ahead of the game in this, and that we actually made revenue in this particular venue. Just where,
Director Walsh.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if you look at the big picture and not just the annual operating account for this facility, like many recreational facilities the town operates, when you add in depreciation and life cycle costs on the buildings there, future replacements, it does run in a deficit.
okay, I guess, like when I'm looking at it, it looks like it was a very successful year with $280,000 in surplus, and now we're looking at increasing or doubling, not just a slight increase, but 100% increase in the residential rate. I'm a bit concerned that, again, thinking back when we first did it, many of the residents thought they should be getting in for free, and we thought a nominal fee was more so to control. Somewhat of it was for the revenue, but some of it was to control the people coming in and out, that you wouldn't get a lot of young children unaccompanied, so to speak, onto the beach. I'm not necessarily in favor of this, because at $280,000, if we get $280,000 every year, I would think that would go towards the asset management plan of 280. I don't know if the buildings are going to depreciate more than $280,000 per year. So I'll wait to hear what other councillors say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Noyes. Councillor Dubanow.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would actually like to move that we maintain the $10 resident pass, and that staff report back to us on revenue options utilizing the day pass and potentially parking to see if there's an opportunity to make up that revenue that way. And if I may speak to the amendment, Mr. Chair, I'm a little taken aback by this, and I understand the revenue concern that we're all facing. I didn't even, I hadn't even found out that this was on the agenda, and it was actually, I started receiving emails and messages on social media, and there was overwhelming negative opinion on this. So let me put it into more blunt terms. Life is already expensive enough right now as it is, and much of that is outside of this council's control. There are external factors, there's inflation, there's building cost, et cetera, et cetera. I think we should, whenever we can, find ways to make things more affordable or reasonable for the residents. And we have an opportunity here. We have day pass revenue, we have parking. There's a lot of ways that we can make up revenue here that may not necessarily impact the residents of the community. And, you know, I was going through doing the numbers really, really quick and looking at it. You know, we're talking $70,000 of revenue if we double it based on the previous amount. you know, looking at the number of day passes we have, you know, $1, $2 increase might make up the difference if that's that necessary. I'm of the opinion that, you know, I would prefer residents not need to pay at all. You know, we live in a community with a wonderful waterfront. That's one of the few public areas that we have access to, and I believe that the waterfront is the birthright of all residents in this community. I have a very difficult time justifying charging for any open space like that. That's a battle I haven't won in the past. I'm not sure it's a battle I'll win in the future, but I'm having a real hard time justifying the doubling here when we have other tools at our disposal that wouldn't necessarily impact local residents. So that's what I'd like to move. I will not be supporting the increase here. I understand the challenges, but I think we need to find a way to make up the difference. So that's why I'd like to move that.
Thank you for your comments. We have an amendment on the floor. I know the mayor wants to speak to it, and I believe Councillor McDermott also had some direction in terms of where he might want to go with an amendment as well. So you might want to include that in your conversations, but your worship.
Chair, in terms of the proposed amendment, I don't have enough information to be able to make a decision on whether I want to support that or not support that. I know that this $10 fee was imposed in 2019. I don't know what the inflation has been since then. Even if it was 15%, that'd be $1.50 increase on $10. There's a reference to the seasonal passes. Why were they not considered? Mr. Walsh made reference to life cycle costs. I don't know what those are, but I'd like to know what they are and how they factor into the return on the investment that we've made here, the amount of money that we generate, the costs that we incur on an ongoing basis. Are the life cycle costs more than $280,000? Could very well be. So before I would make a decision on that, or on whether we should increase anything, I like the idea of looking at other alternatives for how we can generate revenue, but I'd like to know what it is, what's the barrel that we're shooting into. I just don't know that. I don't know how much revenue we need to raise, and I want to be fair to the residents on the one hand. On the other hand, this is not like an open space. This is like one of our arenas, as an example. We've put a lot of money into Bay Beach, and so it's more than just the beach. And so I'd like to get that information. So what I'm proposing, what I would like to do is move that we refer this report back to staff to get some of the information that Councillor Dubanow has requested, to get some of the information that I've requested, so that we have at least a clearer picture on what it is that we need in terms of additional revenue, why we would focus on one place rather than others, and what are the other options that are available to us. So my motion is, and I would say, if staff is agreeable, that it come back at the next committee meeting, which I think is February the 10th or February 10th.
Okay, so thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Dubanow, are you withdrawing your amendment?
Yes, his worship is able to put it far more eloquently than I did. So I'm agreeable to that. I'll withdraw.
We've withdrawn one amendment. We have a new amendment on the table. And is that removing the second that you're suggesting?
No, I'm suggesting that we refer this back to staff to provide additional information for the committee meeting on February the 10th.
Thank you for that clarity. And Councillor Noyes, I'm going to go to first.
Only to timing.
Okay. Councillor Noyes, do timing? Make it fit to timing.
Well, okay. Again, it's one of these things is that it is age 12. It isn't age 10. I've just read it on our for everything. I thought it's important for us to know that.
So that's been clarified. To timing, Councillor McDermott?
I already have the same motion as what the mayor has anyway, so
That's thank you.
it's all good.
Okay. And that's everything from nothing further to
Well,
timing?
just one thing, and that is no matter what people think, this whole beach is built with taxpayers' money, no matter how you look at it.
I'm going to keep it to timing, and we can have the debate on, I
All
don't
right, that's
disagree
fine,
with
whatever.
Councillor Christensen.
I would like I support the reconsideration. I did note, and I agree with Councillor Noyes, it is 12. And my own personal opinion is it shouldn't be lowered. But the other question is, I noted with respect to the second recommendation, or the.
Okay, so, point of order. This isn't to timing. This is, well, I don't know that. So, there's a motion to defer this report. You can't debate that. You can discuss timing. If there's additional information that you want, you could ask for that, but you can't be commenting on the report.
Okay, then I am
Sorry,
about
we'll
to-
stick with Councillor Christensen and
I am about to indicate that I would like further information. The current report speaks to the issue of the timing for the paddle boards and kayaks, and makes a recommendation based on the observation that there were 119 responses that asked for it to be any time of day. And the comment in the report was that this was a minute number compared to all of the users. I would point out that there were 160.
Okay, so point of order again, Chair. This is debate. This matter, there's a motion to refer, and it's not debatable.
Councillor
something that can be
Christensen,
discussed when it
anything
comes
to
back.
timing? No. Okay. Any other questions to timing on the amendment that is on the floor? And go ahead.
Just with regard to the reference itself, when the report comes back, just on revenue, I had mentioned parking before. I hope that parking is taken into consideration as well when this is reported back to council. That is a tool that we have available as well.
Thank you, Councillor Dubanow. And just one question I have, and that is, I hope that when the report's being looked at, we look at the total purchase price for the property, what's been spent on the property, what's been made on the property, and what's been spent to operate the property since originally purchased by the town. That information would be helpful too. So, any other questions to timing? Seeing none, I'll call the question to the amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. That's been done with. Any other items of new business or inquiries from members? Seeing none, the business status report. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I turn the chair back over to you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lewis. That takes us to Corporate and Community Services. Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Your Worship. Corporate and Community Services now in session. No presentations or delegations this evening. No reports. Any new business inquiries? Your Worship.
Yeah, I wonder if we could get a report from staff, or not necessarily report, but information advising us as to the outstanding litigation that the town is engaged in, so that we've got a handle on that. It used to be at one point we would get that on a periodic basis. I know that there's some outstanding litigation, and by that I mean court proceedings, tribunal proceedings, just so that we have an understanding of where we are, and if it's possible, if our town solicitor can make some comments with respect to any of them, that would be of assistance as well. And I would hope we could have that, within a month or so.
Mr. McQueen, or?
I think I'll refer that to Mr. Riley, because I'm curious to know where he's at in terms of orienting to some of the files the mayor's referred to, and just want to make sure he has enough time to prepare that in a full way to fully inform council.
Thank you, Mr. Riley.
Thank you. I think typically an annual litigation report is usually put before council on an annual basis. So that's something that I'm going to be implementing in the future. I can certainly bring that to council as soon as practicable.
So then how, if I might, Chair, then how about if we just have the basic data so that we know, we have a risk management function here, So we would know what our litigation is, we would know what our tribunal engagement is. Some of those would be insured, some of them would not be insured, some of them, so even some basic data, because we haven't received that information that I recall now for a while.
I can certainly, sorry, through
Go
to
ahead.
you, Mr. Mayor, I can certainly bring that to council.
Just a memo would be fine.
Wonderful. Appreciate that. Thank you. Anyone else? No, seeing none. Any questions on the business status report? Seeing none, I'll turn the chair back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Flagg. That takes us to scheduling of meetings. Any meetings anyone wishes to announce? Councillor Dubanow.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. The Museum and Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee has a meeting this Wednesday at Town Hall. It's at 1 p.m. I don't know if we're in conference room 1 or 2 yet, but we will definitely be here at Town Hall 1 o'clock on Wednesday.
Okay, any other meetings? If there are, since there aren't any, Councillor Dubanow, would you be good enough to?
Yes, I'd like to move that council and committee adjourn at 7:06 p.m. this evening.
All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Thank you all.